welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker, and we're looking at different kinds of teas, lots of Chinese style of teas, which I have today. And we're going to be getting into this tea, and this particular tea is a pu'er. Pu'ers are newer to many people. They are kind of a category onto themselves as far as Chinese teas go, because while you have a green tea through to oolongs to black teas, which can have different levels of oxidation to them, pu'ers kind of stand in their own category in that way that you can have green pu'ers, you can have or more highly fermented or oxidized type of pu'ers, and not to mention the fact that the aging process contributes to the character of a pu'er tea. So I've got one here today. It is a green pu'er, and I've actually, because of some of the issues with this tea, my issues, not necessarily the tea itself, I've already prepared a little bit of tea in my Gai Wan here, so it's ready to go. And I'm going to go ahead actually and steep that, and then we'll be able to talk a little bit about it. Now, because this is pu'ers often have pretty intense, pretty strong flavors right from the get-go, I'm going to give this one, I'm not going to steep this one too long, because the flavors can become too intense. If you're tasting at home and considering following along with this, you don't want to oversteep this, okay? One of the advantages of pu'ers is that you can steep usually many times from the same leaves, so that's a positive, from the same serving even, I should say. So I'm going to let that get ready. Actually, that's probably done quite a bit, and it's got some good strength already. I can actually look down and see that there's leaves that have somewhat unfurled already. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this, and then we'll be able to kind of backtrack and talk about some of the aspects of this tea. So let that sit for just a moment. Again, don't want to let that sit too long. As it cools, it could change in nuance and flavor and other notes that we want to talk about. Now, let me introduce this tea first off. I'm going to hold up the package that it comes in first and talk about. This is from China Chadao. Their 2010 Shangdou Brick Douji being the name of the company, Douji Gold Award, and this is a sheng or raw pu'er. This is a 250-gram brick that is available for $7.99, just under $8. This is as I said, 2010 harvest, and information on China Chadao's website, which is, by the way, an eBay store, says that this is from the 1001 I should say batch. Yes. I'm looking to see if that's on the package, because your package will contain a lot of information. It does tell you the weight here as well, and some of the other things that you'll want to note. That you've got your package, you've got your brick as well, which has a nice printed scenic image there on the package. You can see that the paper, the seal, has been placed inside the brick. You can see the edges of the paper here pressed in as well. And on the back of your paper you have some information as well, also telling, in Chinese, but it does tell the production date, that month and date are there, which are March 29th of 2010 is clearly marked on there as well. Some other things to note about this dry leaf. Let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about this dry leaf as we kind of move on, though. Let me slide this forward, because there is something I do want to note in talking about this. Now, when considering preparing a pu'er, and what you saw with me, what I often do on Walker Tea Review is, I'm able to get a brick or a cake like this. I'm able to take a knife, go in through the side with the point, and just kind of wedge and work that and twist that until I've loosened up a portion. This particular brick is quite densely packed. If I were to go and try to work in this way, and wiggle. It's going to take quite a bit of force, and it's going to take, you're probably going to lose that control of force at a point where it starts to slip and loose, and you're going to end up slicing a finger. So in order to protect yourself, I'm going to recommend a more of an angled, don't come down directly into, but take an angle, say pointing towards 10, 11 o'clock, and work yourself at an angle to break off layers of this cake as you work along it. And you want to have a piece of paper underneath, because this is going to crumble. Your knife is going to slip occasionally, and but you want to be able to collect all those pieces and leaves that you've broken off. So a little bit of strategy involved with preparing this kind of, or getting ready to steep this particular kind of tea. Before I put it back in, you do want to note that, as I said, this is a green pu'er, so you're getting a lot of lighter green type colors. You're clearly seeing a lot of leaf shapes pressed in, so that, at least that so far on the surface, that's the strategy, is to give you a nice indicator that these leaves are pressed into layers. They're not going down through the cake. They are laying flat, so that you are being able to break off whole leaves as you kind of work through the layers. Okay, it has some of that green pu'er kind of smell. Kind of, I don't know, closest thing I would find would maybe be a green hay, a hay that has begun to kind of oxidize. It has begun to go from the fresh cut grass smell to that early hay stages. Okay, so, and I guess there's some similarity in that those are both fermentation or oxidation type process. There's a bacterial process in making hay, and a similar bacterial type process that can take place in a pu'er. So let me set this aside, because I do want to go now and talk about this liquor and the details of this tea. First off, I'm going to give these leaves a smell here before they cool off too much more. I picked up some kind of baked heat notes. It's similar to what I might find with a green tea. There was a little bit of, initially there was a little bit of like a green bean or even a lima bean type note. So this one kind of is indicating, as the information suggests, that this is closer to a green tea in its nature at this point, and because it hasn't necessarily aged that much. Looking at these leaves, let me work down through, because I had to slice in an angle and wasn't able to get always able to get, you know, full size leaves, but there are some good leaf portions here that you can see here. For example, a nice leaf section, wider, larger leaf here. Another piece of leaf that has not yet fully unfurled. Actually, let me just pull this out for note. There are tips and needles here as well, and then because of the way I slice this, you're going to get portions of leaves as well. So that kind of covers our wet leaf. You will notice that because this one is a raw pu'er, and a fairly young raw pu'er at that, it's going to have a lot of olive green or green tea type colors to it as well. So let's move on now and talk about the liquor here. Because of the way I cut this, there was a bit more of a powdery component to it, but this one does have a fairly deep and somewhat like a green, an intense, and in some ways not the brightest, lightest green type of green tea type color. This one is more of a light honey as far as the golden color goes. Okay, moving over towards a yellowish brown kind of tinge there. Again, it has some of those hay type or early sheng cha type of notes to the aroma, which come across this something in the early stages of a hay, of a wet hay type note. Let's give it a try now. Just looking through the tea itself, decent clarity so far. Okay, let's give it a taste. I'll say this for it, you know, when you get a lot of green tea, or I should say shung pu'ers like this, in these early stages, they often have a pretty high level of astringency and a pretty sharp bite to them, so that they get quite puckery, quite brisk in their nature. This one, it's a 2010 batch, but it's already smoother, it's already gentler. Okay, so that's one of the first things I noticed was it's not as intense yet. Now, it remains to be seen what that means for later aging and storage of this tea. How it's is it going to mature? What's it going to pick up? Is it going to become a subtle, gentle, refined type of aged pu'er? Texture, it's like I said, because it has light astringency, it's fairly soft and gentle as far as the texture goes. It's not watery by any means. It's not a thick coating either. So it's just kind of a mild, consistent coat there. The tastes themselves, the aromas and taste, again, it's not picking up a lot of the wet straw type, wet hay type of character that can come out in a lot of the earlier or younger, I should say, shung pu'ers. So this one's just kind of overall gentler, overall milder in astringency and aromas, in texture. So the question then, and again, this is kind of a wait. You have to wait and see kind of question and answer for the question as to what does that mean as far as when this tea is aged and stored, and also depends on the factors of how it's stored. So looking at this tea as a whole, I would probably give this tea an 89 as it stands for, or as it stands as something that could be drunk right now without feeling and tasting overly harsh. So come back to Walker Tea Review, where you're going to be looking at teas for now, teas to store away for later to become treasures as well.